there's a big thing coming up. I'm just wondering, I'm just looking at, am I live or not? Up in that far right, left corner there, there's a light that comes on. Is there a problem?
No. I thought you said you needed my help.
No.
Oh, it's coming.
We've got Michelle crawling on her hands and knees. I think I've told you before, she likes to sit on the floor. All right, I hope I'm looking at you. Who knows these days, because the camera's in a weird place and I don't even know where I'm looking, so my eyes will be really weird and all over the place probably. Hi everyone, woohoo, Halloween, it's Halloween. My grandson is so excited. He's going to dress up today as Jack Skellington, and apparently Jack Skellington is he the Pumpkin King or something in the Monsters movie? Michelle, help me out.
The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sorry, the dog's been left outside as well. So the Nightmare Before Christmas. In the Nightmare Before Christmas, it does not actually, as a movie, sound to me as if a 6-year-old child should be watching this movie. But apparently he loves it. It's really funny, so it must be a kids' movie. And he's going as Jack Skellington. I today am dressing up as me, as you can see. I couldn't find a witch's hat. I did think about putting sort of like really weird makeup on, like eyes. Oh baby, what's the matter? Sorry. He didn't like that idea, what's the matter, Silky Boy? And so he doesn't like it when we talk about Halloween, obviously. But today is the day that we did, in fact, conclude our competition. So how are we going to do this? Are we going to announce the winners gradually, or shall we just announce them all at one time? What do you think, Michelle?
I think that we should go through the ones that we wanted to talk about first.
Right.
And then we'll give the winners at the end of it.
Oh, all right.
Not at the end of the show, just at the end of our discussion over it.
All right. So I have to say thank you to everybody who entered. We had so many good bits of information. We had so many people write in about their superstitions and old wives' tales. I thought I would read one or two to you, or maybe even 3 or 4, because after all it is Halloween. I also thought I might tell you a ghost story a bit later on. We'll see how much time we've got. Let me know if you want a ghost story. Click yes if you want one, and no if you don't want one. If Michelle sees yes or no up there, you'll know, and we'll take a vote. In the meantime, my glasses need cleaning, but who cares about that anyway? Right, so we made a list of some of the ones that you sent in. Some I know, some I don't know. It's been fascinating actually reading through these things, and some of you were lovely enough to send in, where these things originated. So let me just we've got knock on wood, and apparently whoever sent it in said this phrase is almost like a verbal talisman designed to ward off bad luck out of tempting fate. We all knew that, I think, but thank you for letting us know. Breaking a mirror is another one. Yes, we know that one. Let me see. The fixation on wood may come from old myths about good spirits in trees. Now, I do know that in certain parts of the world, certainly in China and in the Far East, is probably where I first came across it, although there are myths concerning the same thing in England. People used to believe that there were some people believe there are actually evil little or naughty little imps and elves and things living in trees. As Samantha was growing up, I used to read the story of the Faraway Tree, which was written by Enid Blyton, the most amazing book. And if you haven't read it and you've got children or grandchildren, go online and get that. It's called The Magic Faraway Tree. It's wonderful. My daughter was able to find some smaller stories because the book is full of all sorts of lots and lots of different stories, but my daughter was able to find small books with some illustration on each of the stories, because they all go up to the top of the magic faraway tree, and there are different lands that come, and the kids go and have adventures. That's what I'm telling you about this. But getting back to wood nymphs and so on, I had a patient in China, a very old man. He was going blind and he wanted me to cure his blindness. He was very wealthy, so I suppose he was used to, you know, being able to buy anything, but you can't buy things like that, can you? But anyway, he was convinced that he had been driven by this tree nymph. I can't remember quite. I think it was a tree nymph who lived in his garden and was evil. And so he actually at one point sold his house and moved in order to get rid of this tree thing. And apparently it followed him to the next house, and then it followed him to the next house. He was convinced that he was whatever, I don't know, you can't say bewitched or cursed or whatever, but I think he believed that he was cursed by this tree thing. So there are these tales of wood nymphs and knocking on wood. I think in England we thought they were good spirits in the trees, so knocking on wood is like saying we just awakening that little nymph that's taking care of us, to say just make sure nothing happens to us. So I think that's where that comes from. I could go on and on about this stuff. Let's see, what else have we got here? We've got beginner's luck. Yes, beginners apparently more lucky, whatever. And your itchy palms, there's so many people write that one in. If your palms itchy, it means that you're going to, I think, is it, anyway, right hand receive and left hand leave. You're going to receive money and you're going to leave it. It's going to leave. Let's see, what else? If your nose is itchy, we had so many, didn't we, about the nose is itchy. You're going to kiss a fool, you're going to be vexed. There was another one, I can't remember it. Let's see. When your ears are hot, someone's talking about you. Yeah, okay, we know all of these. 7 years bad luck. Let me see, I'm going skipping down these. Let's see. Oh, I think it might have been Wendy who sent this in. She's talking about the Christmas pudding. It's relevant because I just made my Christmas cake yesterday, and if you go to Instagram you'll see a photo of the stage 1 of the Christmas cake. It looks good, it smells so good. But when you make a Christmas pudding in England, well, in the British Isles actually, we used to find these, that we had these little coins that were called sixpences, tiny silver, and they were made of silver, and we'd put one silver sixpence in the pudding, and everybody would dive into the pudding looking for that one silver sixpence, because, you know, it was a little treasure. So we used to always put it in the pudding. What I did when I grew up and I had my own Christmas dinners, any kid who was at my table, and there usually were quite a few because I had friends with kids, I would hoard a few weeks before Christmas, I'd hoard some silver sixpences, and I would put a silver sixpence in every child's pudding. As I served up the pudding, I would slip the sixpence underneath. We always had to warn the kids though, be careful, because we don't want you choking on a sixpence, because then it wouldn't be good luck, would it? But anyway, we always did that. So that was a tradition. I'm not sure if a tradition counts as a superstition, but anyway, I thought that was fun and I did appreciate it. And on and on and on and on and on and on. Let's see, Kitty, when my grandmother would put new Easter shoes, she put salt in the shoes, and we got, anyway, we got a whole lot of stuff. We got a whole lot. So I have to tell you, we've had so much fun, right, Michelle?
Yes,
Lots and lots of fun reading these, so we thank you all. And what we're going to do now is to just take a break, see if anyone out there has a question. Is anybody actually listening to us as I'm rambling on here? So we'll take a couple of questions. Then we'll come to one of the winners anyway, and we'll talk about one of the winners. And the prize, what did we say the prize was? The prize was a DVD of the Eagle and the Rose, me literally reading my little dulcet tones on there, so you couldn't have better than that. Also my new book, which is A Walk in the Clouds, and one of the meditation CDs as well. The winners, if you're sort of on the edge of your seat, please, winners, we shall need you to email us your address so that we know where to send your prize. So,
and then we added a meditation CD in too.
I'm sorry, what?
We added one of your meditation.
Yeah, didn't I just say that?
I thought I didn't think I heard it.
I thought I did. Who knows? Let's have a question. Is there anybody there? Is there anybody wanting a question?
Everybody wants a ghost story.
Oh, good. Yes. All right. Let me think. Maybe I'll tell the ghost story in a little bit then. I'm trying. There are so many. There are so many. It's Halloween, so I should have a spooky one, shouldn't I? Which one to choose? I think I have an idea of which one to choose. Does anybody have a comment or a question yet? Or does everybody want to go to the winners?
Well, Lori said that her granny always told her to throw any spilt salt over your left shoulder.
Oh yeah, we have that as well. But I never heard the salt in the shoe before. Put salt in Easter shoes. What was it supposed to? Can you remember what it was?
To keep the evil away.
To keep the evil away. Oh, right then. You know, salt in Victorian times, when salt was first discovered, it might have been discovered before Victoria, but anyway, whenever it was discovered, it was so priceless. It was so expensive. There was no such thing as throwing it over your shoulder because you know, only the rich had salt. And they had these little tiny, and I think I've got one somewhere, a little tiny dish set in a silver holder, and a little tiny, weeny tiny little salt spoon. And I think they're up there. See that blue thing up there? I don't know if you can get up there. Never mind, it doesn't matter because I've forgotten your hip. Don't bother about it. I'll show you next week, perhaps, if I think about it. But the tiny spoons indicated that, you know, you would only ever sprinkle a little salt because it was a commodity that only the rich had, and it was extremely expensive and rare and all the rest of it. Now look at us. We throw salt over our shoulder. We spill it. We used to, you're going to think this is awful, but we used to have garden slugs in our garden that would eat the roses and eat the vegetables and all of that stuff, and we used to tip salt all over them and they'd just shrivel and die. We use salt now like it's nothing. Do we have any other questions or comments, or shall I go to our first winner?
Sharon said Druid considered trees sacred and used to knock on trees for luck, and that could have been the origin of knock on wood.
Yeah. Who knows? It's amazing. Just who knows? We're just thrilled anyway to have all this stuff, and I'm sure that, you know, lots of people have different ideas of where the origin of things come from. Let's go to our first winner then. All right, let's do that, because then we can get that over and done with. Let me think. So yes, so the first winner, and we had a few of these, but this was interesting. When I was a child, my grandmother would put salt in our new Easter shoes. She said it would ward off any evil directed towards us. I never saw any evil. I guess it worked. And she also says, thanks for the great show. And yes, Kitty, you are Now, that doesn't mean you're the best or the worst. It was just, I never heard that before. So it's very interesting. So Kitty is one of our 3 winners. All right. Then we've got this one. Now, we did have a few people mention bees in different contexts. But this one, go tell the bees. And then this person actually explains why we should go tell the bees or talk to the bees. So back in history in England, whenever there is a death in the family, someone goes out to tell the bees and to assure them that all is well. If they didn't do this, they feared the bees would leave or all die off. And there are lots of myths about bees, but bees leaving and or dying off is actually was huge in England, and even today beekeepers talk to their bees and you know, let their tell their bees these things. So or if there was a wedding, the newly married couple must introduce themselves to the bees. And I hadn't heard that one, but I love it. And in any event, any event must be told to the bees. If the bees were not told, it was believed all sorts of calamity would happen. So this person also sent in, you already must know who it is, that this person. So this person also sent in a second one, which is also interesting. Wishing on a star or is a superstition where there's no concrete origins. Well, actually, different countries have different origins. So because they were or are so rare, it is said the Greeks believed when a shooting star was seen, the gods were looking down on them. We would wish upon a star. We would actually make a wish upon a shooting star, and you're right, they are very rare. In Yorkshire, falling stars were considered a good omen. I lived in Yorkshire for many years, so yeah, I can attest to that. Let me see. Stars were the souls of babies coming down from heaven. It is true that when I see babies, either prior to them entering the womb or in the womb, they shine and twinkle like the brightest and the most beautiful of stars, so I can see that. We're not going to go to the bad stuff because there is, all sorts of bad stuff. But anyway, so that person, and I sort of, it was really the salt in the shoes for Easter that sort of intrigued me. And that.
A different person.
Sorry?
The salt in the shoes is a different person.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. The one that you just read.
Oh, sorry, that's Kitty. Sorry, the talking to the bees I didn't know about, but all this information was what really made this person a winner. I have to say that this person also sent in at least a dozen more.
Yeah.
More. We can't read them all, Maggie, sorry, but you are our second winner. All right, now we have, this one's an interesting one because we go now to the Far East, we go to Japan. In Japan, if a hearse passes or you walk by a cemetery, you must tuck in your thumbs. In Japanese, the word for thumb translates as parent finger. So by hiding, you're protecting your parents from death. I've never heard it. I grew up with my thumbs tucked in. I've always had my thumbs tucked in. If I'm upset or if I'm nervous about something, I tuck in my thumbs. I sleep with my thumbs tucked in. That's a protective thing, actually. It's often children who are abused or children who have tough childhoods or what have you, they'll tuck in their thumb. It's almost like a comforter or protection of some kind. I do get that. And what else? And Yes, I also like this one from the same person. In medieval England, expectant mothers made a groaning cheese. I never heard this, never. A groaning cheese that cured for 6 months, or sorry, 9 months, while the baby developed. Curing means, sort of like sort of fermenting, like just like I cure my Christmas cake for 6 or 8 weeks before we eat it. And when the groaning time, meaning childbirth, and let me tell you, it's not just groaning, it's screaming and moaning and wailing when you're having a baby. But anyway, so when the time of childbirth came, the cheese would be shared with the family. And by the time nothing but the rind was left, the baby would be passing through the wheel of cheese on their christening day. I love that. Don't you love that? I really like that. This meant they would be blessed with a long and prosperous life. So, I didn't know about the Japanese thing. I didn't know about the groaning cheese. I love the groaning cheese. I love, love, love the idea of the groaning cheese. And our third winner is Sharon, who also sent us in dozens more. So I don't know if you sent in lots and lots thinking that the odds would be that I'd like one, but you're right, I did like it. So, all right, so they are our three winners. So we've got Kitty and Maggie and Sharon. However, we had so many entries, we had so many of you taking time, that I couldn't pass up one more. So I'm going to tell you a ghost story. Then you get to, well, actually, we'll have a few more questions or comments. Then I'll tell you a little ghost story, if you'd like. And then I will announce our fourth and special winner, because this actually is my favorite of all of the entries that we got in. So do we have any questions or comments?
Isa is on this morning.
Morning, Isa.
And he said, good morning. Hi, good morning, Rosemary and Michelle. Really lovely to see and hear the both of you.
Good.
I want to thank you for adding me to your mailing list and my grandmother to your healing list. And then he goes on to say that the necklace that you're wearing has the word God in Arabic on it.
It does.
He said it's engraved in it and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, it's really translates as, and he can perhaps, pardon?
He said it says Allah.
It does. It says Allah, which is not God. It's Allah. But in every, and I do love it. And I'm a person who has always loved history, not just my own British history, although I get very involved in British history, but I do love the history of the kings, the queens, the princes. I love the history of the poor. I love the history of how people survived in medieval times. But I also love the history of religions and different religious beliefs. I hate the word religion because it's so narrow, and and people say to me, "Are you religious?" And the word religion means so many things to so many different people. It means one thing to one person, it means another thing to somebody else. So I always say, well, I believe in that God force. I don't necessarily believe in God as a man sitting on a throne with a long white beard and all that, but I do believe in that God force, that God energy, the purity and the goodness of God. And around the world, different people have different beliefs, and I've been to the Far East, and I've been to some Arabic countries, and aside from the fact that they do have fabulous jewelry, of course, I also, this is something special to me, because it just it basically honors let's say, a prophet, maybe not in my own religion, but I don't know if anyone has ever read the Quran, truly read the Quran. Um, of course, uh, has anybody read the Bible through from one end to the other? And everybody, when they read it, has different interpretations and different ideas. And what speaks in any book, what speaks to one person doesn't necessarily speak to another. So we all sort of take our own interpretation of what it is that we're reading, whether it's a religious book or whatever it is. And but my take on lots of I'll use the word religion. My take on lots of religious leaders all over the world is that in so many different religions, and if you do check on the history, if you do go into the history of different religious or let's say prophets or people who speak of wisdom and of that God force or whatever it is they believe, there's always something you can find which you can relate to. There's always something you can find in any religion which can speak to you if you're open-minded enough. I'm not Jewish, I'm not Catholic, I am certainly not Muslim, I'm not any of those things. If I put a label, I hate labels, but if I put a label on myself, it would have to be Baptist, because I was baptized and I love my church. I loved the people in the church. That church that I went to, the Baptist church, was where I learned about Christ. It was where I learned about God, but it was where I learned about kindness more than anything else, because those people who ran that church were my family and they were kind to me when my own family were not. So am I Baptist? I guess you could say yes, but I feel as if I don't want to label myself. So I'm not really Baptist. I'm just me embracing all beliefs that are good and all beliefs that are wise. And I think if more of us did that, and if we didn't put ourselves in little cupboards, little boxes, we'd get much more out of life. Is there anybody wanting a comment about that?
No, Sharon just sent an email or sent me a message saying that she emailed in, so I flipped over and the very first thing I see is I'm a winner. It just made me chuckle a little bit.
You are a winner. All right, so let us give our fourth winner, because I know I said there are only three, but this is my favorite. I hope I can read it properly. I hope you can understand what I read, but what I would advise anyone to do if you're interested is to go to Google or go to wherever it is you go for these things and check it out, because it's really rather fascinating. Now then, let's see. Okay. This winner did exactly what I just suggested that you do. It is the simplest of superstitions. It's something I think almost everyone around the world will either do it or know of it or recognize it when they see it. When you wish something, when you hope for something, whether it's for yourself or anybody else, or if you're just hoping that things go well, what do? Cross my fingers. We used to say cross my fingers, and at the same time as crossing your fingers, you cross your heart. Cross my fingers and hope to die, or cross your heart and hope to die. But nevertheless, it's the crossing, it's the cross. So this person, my favorite, writes in, hi Rosemary, you mentioned the superstition of crossing your fingers, and I took your suggestion and researched it. This superstition thus became popular amongst many early European Christian cultures. Charles Panati, I'm not sure quite who that is, I hope I'm saying it correctly, believes that the act of crossing one's fingers is a sign of luck or making a wish traces back to pre-Christian times, speculating that the cross was a symbol of unity and benign spirits dwelt at the intersection point. Dwelt at the intersection point. And then he says, thank you. Well, I'm thanking you, Kevin. I like that. Crossing your fingers is a symbol of unity. Yes, we cross our fingers if we're sort of wishing or hoping or whatever for something. We cross our fingers if we're just, I mean, sometimes I do it and I've got my fingers crossed behind my back because, I don't necessarily, want anyone to see that I'm crossing my fingers or wishing or hoping for an outcome. But still, I love the fact that, first of all, it is probably one of the superstitions around the world that the majority of the population, the world population, recognizes. I also like the fact that most people do it automatically, not even knowing why or the reasons behind it. But I love the fact that it's dated, it's pre-Christian, it is a sign of unity, and it is a sign of a joining and a connecting at the intersection, and the intersection being that intersection between we who are on this earth plane and those who are beyond us, or those who have gone before us. That's how I take the intersection, the joining of the spirit world with this earth plane, the joining of a man and a woman, just the joining in the unity and of coming together. And this is why this is my favorite. And Kevin, you are a winner. And I just love it, love it, love it. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So that is the end of our competition. We're going to have probably a few minutes now of going through your questions, and because I know people like to call in and they like an opportunity to ask questions and so on, but it is Halloween, so I will have to tell somewhat a little ghost story. I'm so torn as to which to tell you, but we can do this again, and it doesn't have to be Halloween, and I can tell you ghost stories all day long. Right, what do we have going on, Michelle? Or are people just wanting to just listen?
People were just listening to you, really. Alina is on.
Alina, good morning.
And she said that she has been feeling better since last night's healing session.
Good.
She says, thank you so very much. I hope I'm on your healing list forever. Loads of love to you and all around.
You'll be on our healing list, darling, for as long as you want to.
And that it's actually amazing how one session had such an effect. My heart is behaving with your help and healing.
Good. I'm glad. We're glad. Healing is an amazing thing. It can work in a second. It can work in a heartbeat. It's always working, even though we don't realize it. But the results of it can be either either felt or visual results can be either immediate or they can take a while. But you know what? It's still working just the same, whether we like to understand that or not. Let's have another one. Thank you for that, Alina.
Here was one I missed, and it was from Kitty, and she said, salt was paid to the Roman soldiers.
Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. Does that mean I'm going to be kissed by a fool, or does it mean I'm going to be vexed?
I hope it's kissed by a fool and not vexed.
It's actually the fan is driving me crazy. Sorry. Kitty, yes? One of our winners, Kitty.
She said that salt was paid to Roman soldiers as he is worth his salt.
Yes. Yeah. And we go on. Now, as much as I love you all, the competition is ended, and
that was earlier before you.
Oh, was it?
The
competition is done, and we're done with all the all the superstitions. But they have been really fascinating, and we've been reading them as we've been going along the last few weeks. Yes.
Maggie's on.
Hi, darling.
And she says,
another winner. Woohoo!
I had to backtrack. I'm listening to this, and holy smokes, I won something.
Holy smokes. Yes, she did. And anyone else with a question or a... That would be a no.
It's quiet today. Everybody's getting ready for Halloween.
All right. So, ghost story then. All right. I might tell you a couple. So, it was the middle of the night. It was dark in my bedroom, but I always kept my door open, somewhat ajar, because I could never sleep fully in the dark, because as you, or those of you who know, have read my books, I was terrified of the dark, and I still like to have some light in the room. I don't like it when it's pitch black at night. Anyway, I could tell you that one as well. Anyway, so they keep popping into my head. What can I do? So anyway, here I am, and I'm sort of, but in the hallway behind the light is fully on. So light comes through the bedroom. So the bedroom is not entirely dark. So I'm asleep, and something sort of wakes me. Now in those days I was a very light sleeper, because I was always terrified to go to sleep, so I was always sort of half alert, listening for the slightest sound, or worrying if somebody was going to come from out under the bed and go boo, that sort of thing. Anyway, for whatever reason, I woke up. Now I woke up enough that I actually sat up in bed, because I could sense or feel something in the room, but I didn't quite know what. The door was at this point mostly closed, but the light from the hallway was coming through. I just looked around. I couldn't see anything. I told myself, as I always did, you're just being silly, you're just being nervous. I went to snuggle back down to go back to sleep, and I heard this sliding sound, and I opened my eyes again and watched in fascination, well, you could almost say fascinated horror, as the door slid open, and the sliding sound was the sound of the door sliding over the carpet. I watched in horror as the door opened, and there in the doorway stood two men. The one who stood in the forefront, he was a fairly tall man. He just stood there and looked at me, watching me, and I sat in bed. I'm sitting now upright in bed, staring back at him. My heart is beating in my chest. And then a second man sort of came behind him and looked at me over his shoulder. I could see both men really clearly. The guy who was standing behind the first one, I the next morning described to my friend in really incredible detail. And I also, this man, the first man I saw, whispered a name to me, and so terrified me that at that point, when I heard the voice whispering over me, I dove under the bedclothes, and that was the end of this apparition coming into my bed in the middle of the night. The next morning I told my friend, and then I told my group what had happened, and I even told them the name of the second man. Nobody knew what I was talking about. Nobody knew a thing about anything. It was probably 3 months later when I was introduced to a man with the exact description of the man that I'd seen in the bedroom that night. Not the one in the front, but the one behind. And I almost fell to the floor when he told me his name, because his name was the exact name that I'd been given that night. Now here's the weird thing, right? Is it a ghost story? I mean, we do travel, right? We travel at night time, we leave our bodies and we travel here, there and everywhere. how could this man who stood in the doorway of my bedroom in the middle of the night, how could he be a ghost if then 3 months later I met him? Am I seeing him out of his body being brought to me to take a look at me to see if I don't know what for, to see if he was interested, because for the next few years he and I had a relationship. The weirdest thing, am I seeing him? Was he a ghost, or was it just his spirit that had left his body to come and check in on me? But who was the first man? Was he Grey Eagle? It didn't look like Grey Eagle. Who was he? Was he my father, perhaps? I have no idea who he was, but I know that he brought this other man to me for a reason. So it's a weird conundrum. Is that a ghost story? Or what is that? Is that a real ghost story or what? I'm not really sure. But anyway, there you have it. Here is my second story. I was in bed, and it was sort of, the alarm went off, and I looked at the clock, and I thought of how many clients do I have this morning, and I knew I was working and that my first clients would be arriving at 10 o'clock. I looked at the clock, it was something like 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I thought I'll just have another 10 minutes, I'll just have another half an hour or something like that. So I lay there, so I'm like in that lovely half awake, half asleep state, but I've got my eye on the clock, and every 5 minutes I keep looking to see how much more time I've got to stay in bed, when I feel an arm come around me, and I feel a body snuggling up close to me. I froze, absolutely froze, because I thought, who is this? Somebody in the bed with me? Who could be in the bed with me? I was so panicked. Sort of, it went through my head, is it a burglar, is it a rapist, who is it, how did he, and all of these things. I know it was a he, because the body was large, his legs totally brushed up against mine, snuggled in, spooned me. He dragged me into his body and spooned me. Now, at first, I was terrified. I was really, as you can imagine, there shouldn't be a man in my bed, but there was a man in my bed. But it was the weirdest thing, because even as I was terrified and thinking, oh my God, and about to leap out of the bed, the hand around my waist gripped tighter. I was pulled tighter in, and this really euphoric feeling just came over me. A feeling that was so comforting and so warm and so incredible that I simply did not want to move. Now remember, I've got clients at 10 o'clock. It's now something like sort of 8 o'clock in the morning now. And I have to get up, I have to get dressed, I have to see to the puppies, I have to do all these things. But I lay there, and at some point, still keeping my eye on the clock and still being held really firmly. No question of it being an imagination, no question of it being a dream, because I'm thinking about, I need to get up. And at one point, I thought, I'm just going to stay here. If they knock at the door, they knock at the door, just not be in. I did not want to move. I did not want to do anything but lay where I was with this man I knew nothing about, didn't know who it was. It felt a little bit, but only a little bit, like when my father, when I was a child, we sometimes had to sleep in the bed, and he'd grip hold of me really tightly. But that was a suffocating feeling. I'd lie between my parents and almost suffocate. This was not like that at all. This was a warm and a wonderful and a beautiful, beautiful feeling of being protected, of being loved and being cared for, and I did not want to give it up. So part of me decided I'm not going to get up this morning and do the consult. I'm just going to stay here because it was such an incredible feeling. It was hard to know, is the man real? Did he somehow find his way into my house? What should I do? Should I turn? What should I do? And at some point I realized that these people were coming to me for a consultation. I didn't know why they were coming, but it could have been for anything, and they could have been desperate. And so I took the responsible way out, and I thought, I have to get up. And at that point, I moved my body, and I turned around in bed, expecting something, and there was nothing. There was no one there. There was literally no one in the bed with me. Now, are you all listening? Do you all think I'm really crazy? To this day, I do not know who that man was. First, I know it was a man. He was much bigger than me, and his legs were, you know how when you, of course, if you've never had this experience, but when you snuggle in and you're spooning in with someone, you know, they're all sort of knobbly knees and, you know, that sort of thing. You know the difference between a woman's legs and a man's legs, and this was definitely a man's leg. So he was a man. He was much bigger than me. He held me like I was precious. He held me like I was his love. He held me like I was a child, embraced in his arms and feeling so safe, the safest I've probably ever felt. And yet when I turned, there was no one there. And to this day, I don't know who it is. Maybe I'm a stray eagle at some point. Still don't know who it is who held me like that, but I'm so happy for the experience of it. It was not the ghost story that you perhaps expected, the graveyard ghost stories and stuff like that. I do have some of those as well, going into a haunted house. I can tell you that story another time. Going into a haunted house and finding a ghost in a haunted house. Going into a house where a lady was convinced that her house was haunted, and indeed it was, but it was haunted by her mother and her family in the spirit world. I've been to lots of ghost huntings, and I've seen people, and I've seen sort of what some of you would consider to be real ghosts. I've never though seen them in white. I've never seen them wearing white sheets. I've never done that, because when I see ghosts, I don't actually believe in ghosts. Here is your Halloween tip. There are no such thing as ghosts. There are people who are from the spirit world. There are people who come to see us, but there are no such things as ghosts. There are just simply people who are trying to get in touch with us for one reason or another. We are now going to spend the last of this show with all of you, so you can ask me any questions. You can do whatever you like. If you don't choose to comment, we're going to end the show. So, you know, come on, get those fingers typing now. Get on with this. I bet Kevin is so surprised that he's a winner.
I haven't seen him on yet this morning.
That's all right. Well, you know what? He can watch it another time. Please, you winners. We've got Kitty, we've got Maggie, we've got Sharon, and we've got Kevin. You do need to email us with an address. It doesn't have to be yours. It's totally private. We will not share it with anyone. But if you want your goodies, then you have to let us know where we can send your prizes to.
Okay, Suzette is on.
Good morning, Suzette.
And she would like to know if you think that he may have been connected with the consultation that morning.
Good question. Good thought. But no, it was far too personal, far too private, far too about me, actually. It was all about me. I did get up, we did do the consultation, and I continued to work the rest of the day. But the temptation to stay in that cocoon of safety, oh gosh, the temptation was very great. It was really very great. Another question? Anything else? Any other
Sharon
comments?
said that you're not crazy. That she
I
had a
know
very
you're
similar
right.
experience
Oh,
a
did
few
you
weeks ago with her
really?
late husband.
Oh,
And that she thought she had told you about it.
You know, I had a very good friend and a student of mine once who, she was in bed, she was asleep, she got suddenly woken up because she felt someone sitting on the bed. And she thought, first of all, absolutely terrified, she sort of put the covers over her head. She laid there thinking, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? And then she said to herself, what would Rosemary do? So she tried to emulate what I would do. So she came out from the covers and she saw a lady sitting on her bed. And she said to the lady, hello, who are you? Trembling in her boots. And she and this lady had a lovely conversation. And then she left. And my friend, her name was Shirley, my friend Shirley, was so thrilled that she'd done exactly what she thought Rosemary would do in those circumstances. It's not unusual for us to have visitors. I'm glad, Sharon, that you had that experience. How lovely for you. And any other comments or questions, my darling?
Lori said, nope, you wouldn't see me for the dust. Twiggy said that, well, that was my kind of ghost story. Haha.
Good, I'm glad. Twiggy, Lori, happy Halloween. Or do you say happy Halloween? Or
happy
do you
Halloween.
do you say, ooh, happy Halloween?
Do you know that I had a dark spirit that came and visited me once?
You had
a very
is this
dark
you?
Spirit, yeah.
You had a dark spirit who came to visit you?
He used to like to hang out in my apartment when I was younger. And he would scratch me, and if I had a gentleman call or stay overnight, it was bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Michelle and I will talk more about that later. If I deem it interesting enough or fun enough or not too scary, we might share it with you another day. Thank you for that, my dear. Yeah. Any other?
Kitty said she was wishing it was the spirit of Cary Grant. Alina said that she wished my father also comes and visits me. Used to get a strange cold tingling sensation after he had passed away, but now after 3 years, not so much. Suzette wants to know my story.
Not today.
Not today, though.
Not today, but she can tell me, Michelle will tell me later, and maybe we'll tell it to you next week. You never know. Christmas is, we're sort of heading in now to sort of Thanksgiving and Christmas, so all this holiday stuff is going on. I made my Christmas cake yesterday, and I know my daddy was around as I was making it, and I certainly know Greg was around as I was making it, who I think we dove straight into the thing that I forgot to say, and we have Gregor here, but you all know that, and so sorry about that. So it is sort of coming up to those times of the stories of ghosts and ghouls and things that go bump in the night. As many of you know, on a Wednesday, when we do the healing session on Wednesdays, I am every week telling a story about one of my patients or a healing story of some kind. If you have a story that you'd like to share with us, it's coming up to Christmas, so please feel free to send us in your stories, and we'll take a look at them, and if we deem them not too long and not too boring, we'll share them. How about that? And maybe I'll start and tell 1 or 2 stories on our Thursday morning as well, although I do like to get to questions, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask them.
Lori has a comment.
Yeah.
She said that her granny used to say her rosary every night, and that when she was about 4, she saw what looked to be Mary at the foot of the bed.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very nice. I'll tell you another little ghost story, because it's sort of not quite a ghost story. Well, it isn't. But this didn't happen to me. This happened to a friend of mine, Gary, who, when he was a young boy, he lived with his mother and his aunt. So he's in bed, he's sound asleep. I think he would probably be about 7 or 8 or something at the time. He remembers it very clearly. So he woke up, and there was a figure at the end of the bed, and he recognized it as his, I think it was his grandmother, who had died 2 or 3 years before, but he knew her and he recognized her. So the figure standing at the foot of the bed said to him, his grandmother said to him, go. She said, go. Get out of bed, go. And of course, he's like, coming out of his sleep, and he's terrified. He's seeing his grandmother, and he takes no notice whatsoever of what she says. So she says to him again, go, get out of bed, go. And he again, sort of still a bit sleepy and terrified, because he was now sitting there terrified because he knew she was dead. He completely ignored her. And he said it was as if she grew and loomed right over the bed and put her face in his face and yelled at him, get out, go, get out now. And he leapt out of bed, went running into his mother's room, screaming and crying. And at the same moment, they heard a massive crash, and his bedroom ceiling had fallen down. And it was on top of his bed, and had he been laid in the bed, he'd have been crushed underneath it. That's a good story.
That
right?
is a good story.
And that's the story my friend Gary remembers. He just sort of ran to his mother and to his aunt, and he was telling them that this ghost had shouted at some grandmothers, shouting at me, and then they hear the crash. So minutes, only a minute, maybe he had he not done what she asked him to do, he would have been crushed under that pile of rubble. I know that there are so many of you out there who have similar stories of being saved or being helped by those in the spirit world. Do we have any other comments? Anyone else wanting to say anything or ask a question?
Lori said that she's got goose pimples everywhere. Suzette said that she's got lots of chills.
Well, it is Halloween, so we do try to give you chills, thrills, and chills on Halloween. Anything else going on?
Not really. It's nice and quiet today. I mean, everybody's just paying attention.
Listening. All right. So if we can I'll remind you all our winners. Yes, I said we'd have 3. We actually have 4. Yippee! Kevin is unfortunately not on with us today, I think, but we have Kitty and Sharon and Maggie, and we have Kevin. They are all winners, and as soon as we get their addresses, we will send them the new book, A Walk in the Clouds. I forgot the name of it for a minute. A Walk in the Clouds. We will send them the audio of The Eagle and the Rose, and we will send them a meditation CD as well. Watch this space for other competitions, because we are going to have another competition maybe in a few weeks, and the prize then will certainly be, at least one of the prizes will certainly be, a free ticket to our online conference calls, right?
Yep,
So
webinars.
The webinars that we're going to be doing. So the winner of the next competition will get a free ticket to a webinar, which is not a bad prize. So keep us posted. You need to, if you want to be on our email list, or if you want to know what we're up to, what we're thinking of doing, please email us rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. If you've got any questions, again, email us rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. If you want to go to Instagram a bit later on today, you'll see the first stage of the Christmas cake. We've not put it up yet, but we're putting that up sometime today. Let me see. You have to request if you want to be on the mailing list, but if you are on the mailing list, you will get notifications of all the things that we're going to be doing in the future. please, please, please share this show with your friends. Just, I don't know how you share, but click on share, go share it everywhere, let other people know what we're doing. And please, 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 you need to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click on subscribe, because the more subscribers we have, the more we'll be able to be doing on YouTube in the future. I think, is that it for now?
I believe so.
So we're done for today. Again, the winners, Kitty and Sharon and Maggie, congratulations. And of course, Kevin, my favorite. I think it's a fantastic superstition. So I'm crossing my fingers, because from now on, whenever I cross my fingers, it'll mean more than just wishing and hoping. It will mean a sign of unity, a sign of love, and a sign of joining together. Somebody just popped up with something. Do they want to say anything else? I just saw somebody else.
She said that hitting the like. Lori said hitting the like button helps too.
Oh, yeah, and hit the like button as well. Thank you, Lori. Yeah. All right. So share. Please subscribe. And watch for more ghost stories. If you have a story you want to share with us, could be a ghost story, could be any kind of a story, please share it with us. Email us rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. And in the meantime, yes, it's Halloween. Have a fabulously, wonderfully, spookily rest of the day. And we shall see you again next week. We shall be tomorrow we shall be doing our Everything is Attitude show with Al Pisano at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We shall also be doing our healing session probably next Wednesday. You need to just keep a check on that. We let you know on our Facebook page. So join us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on wherever it is that we go, all over the place. We're everywhere. And please, please, please have a very, very blessed rest of the day, and don't scare yourselves. Remember, there are no such thing as ghosts. Where am I clicking there? Clicking there. No, I'm clicking there. I can't get it off. It's no good. I'm trying my best.
They just want you to be on forever.
I can't get it off.
Did you get it?
No.
Okay. Here,
so we're still here. Michelle's coming. There you go.